Hey guys, what's going on? This is Carlos Rios here from the Be Ready Sports Podcast, and I'm gonna start something new here on this show. It's a little mini series. I'm gonna do is a 4-part mini series featuring college football and the power conferences. And as you can see from the title, I will be doing a college football tier list for the 4 power conferences in college football: SEC, Big Ten, Big 12, and the SEC, ACC, Big Ten, Big 12, and the SEC. So those are the 4 power conferences we will do. But for part one, we will do the SEC for part one. So before I begin and bring up the tier list, for those of you new watching, please make sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon on YouTube, set them to all notifications so that you get notified of when we post our episodes like these, the mini series, or when we go live during our shows on the weekend. So please make sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Also, for you college football fans that haven't checked out our college football show, you guys can check out college football show on our YouTube channel right here in the Be Ready Sports Podcast. We did a college football show providing an analysis of the college football season for 2026. So if you haven't checked it out, you can check that out. For YouTube, do that. And then we have an Instagram as well. Follow our Instagram at the Be Ready Sports Podcast. We feature sports news, podcast clips, anything related within the podcast will be on the Instagram. For sports news, we cover things like basketball, football, FIFA World Cup. We cover the World Cup, college football, obviously, college basketball, all the hot sports we cover there on the Instagram. So do that for the Instagram. Follow our Instagram at Be Ready Sports Podcast. Then for YouTube, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon. All right, without further ado, let's bring up the tier list. So as you can see, we have the 16 SEC teams that we will rank here, my tier list. So there are 6 tiers that I will be ranking these teams. Obviously, at the top, you have conference champ contenders. These teams are expected to make the conference championship. They're expected to play in Atlanta come December. So they're expected to be there. Their expectations are conference championship. There may be 3 teams, 4 teams, maybe only 2 teams. But that's conference champ contenders. The one below that, almost there. They're almost there. They're literally almost there. They're a really good team, but I have worries of how they will end the year, and it may hurt their chances for a conference championship. So that's what almost there is. Above average, if they can reach their ceiling, above average basically means they're average, but they're better than the average teams. They're better than the average teams, but they're not good enough to play in the conference championship game. They're right there in the above average. Average is right in the middle, maybe like a 6-6, maybe even a 5-7 team if they're good enough. They'll be there. Meh is, we don't know how they're going to do. They're a questionable team. I know they're going to be questionable, like maybe they're in a rebuild, for example. And then trash, obviously, you guys know what trash is. Trash is the bottom of the worst, the bottom of the pile. So without further ado, let's start this tier list, shall we? And let's start with the first team. We will go from left to right, and we'll start with the first team, Oklahoma. So the Oklahoma Sooners, they made the college football playoff last year. They lost to Alabama in the first round at home in Norman. Disappointing loss. But Oklahoma going into 2026, they return a lot of offensive firepower. They bring in John Mateer. He returns. Leading receiver Isaiah Satenia III returns. That is crucial there. 75% of the offense returns. That is third in the country. 55% of the defense returns. Oklahoma, they were known for their ferocious defense last year. They did lose quite amount on defense, but I'm not worried about Oklahoma in regards to the defense. You'll see why. They have one of the toughest schedules in the country. Their leading rusher, Torrey Blaylock, running back, he returns. Their leading rusher, Xavier Robinson, returns. So you got a duo there that is coming back. That is always good. You want to have that foundation players who was there from last season, college football playoff. You want to have that foundation, and Oklahoma has that with a quarterback. receiver, and 2 running backs. That is pretty darn good. And then on the defensive side, they have a linebacker duo, top 2 tacklers from last season, Kip Lewis and Owen Henneke. They both return. That is very good. Leader in sacks, D-line Taylor Wine returns. Leader in pass deflections and INTs, defensive back Peyton Bowen for the secondary. So they have some defensive players coming back. That is very good. As I was talking about for the offense, you want to have that foundation there. And then for the transfers, you got leading receiver Trell Harris from Virginia, from UVA. Leader in INT linebacker Cole Sullivan from Michigan on the defense side of the ball. He's a linebacker. Third leading receiver Parker Livingstone from Texas. He was a part of that packed receiver room in Texas featuring Ryan Wingo and such over there in Texas. Then leading receiver tight end Rocky Beers from Colorado State. You bring him in as a tight end for Oklahoma. Second leading rusher Lloyd Avant, also from Colorado State as well. Third leading receiver Hayden Hansen from Florida. And then second in sacks, Kenny Ozawalu from UTSA. So they brought in some key transfers here and there. They have a defensive foundation. They also have an offensive foundation. They have very good players there. They made the college football playoff last year. Oklahoma, they're currently in the top 25 rankings. They are number 10 in the country. They are number 10 in the country. They are at a pretty good spot. They are at a pretty good spot because of how they ended last season. And then now going into this season, they last season they went 10-3, 6-2 in the conference. That's pretty good. But now I guess we'll see what Oklahoma we'll see this year because they got to play Michigan this year. They got to go to Georgia. They got to take on Texas for a rivalry game this year. They got to play South Carolina at home. They got to take on Florida in the Swamp, a better Florida team than last year. They got to take on Ole Miss at home, A&M, and then you got to end off with Mizzou. So they do avoid teams like Alabama. They do avoid Alabama on their thing. They do, so they do avoid Alabama. They do have Georgia on here, but it's early in the season. So if Oklahoma can get past that early in the season with Georgia, I think they should be good to go. But as you guys know, the SEC, it is a gauntlet. So here in the tier list we go. So Oklahoma, where am I going to put them? I'll put them conference champ contenders. I think they can do it. I think they have the players. Brent Venables, very good in defense. As you guys know, defense wins championships. They got a foundation on defense that was there for the college football playoff last year. They brought in some high-end transfers. I think Oklahoma should be good over there for the conference championship. They should definitely be contenders. Next team we got Missouri. Missouri, they did lose quite a lot. They did quite lose a lot over there in Mizzou. They lost their starting quarterback, Bo Pribula. He's now at Virginia. But, however, they bring in an experienced transfer in Austin Simmons from Ole Miss. He comes in here. They have a new OC. They have a running back duo coming back in Ahmad Hardy and Jamal Roberts, a top running back duo in the SEC. They bring back a second leading receiver in Donovan Olagbodu from Mizzou. He returns. Second leading tackler Nicholas Rodriguez returns at linebacker. Third leading tackler Santana Banner, safety, returns. And then for the transfers, second leading receiver Caleb Goody from Cincinnati. Second leading tackler linebacker Robert Woodward Jr. from Auburn. And then leading rusher Zayshawn Edwards, running back from Houston Christian. He was a 1,000-yard rusher last year for Houston Christian. Now he comes into Mizzou, hopefully to boost up that running back room. And then you got Eli Drinkwitz there over there in Mizzou, who has done a great job over there at Mizzou. So you have a QB, you got a running back room, a pretty good running back room. Receivers, bit of a question mark. You got Donovan Olagbodu there. You got Caleb Goody from Cincinnati, and those are basically the key transfers. That's the key guys in the receiver room. Defensively, I guess we'll see what happens. There's maybe a lot of questions there for Mizzou, a lot more questions than I have. Mizzou, they're the number 25 team in the country. They're the number 25 team in the country going into this year. For Mizzou, in regards to the schedule, they do play Kansas on the road. They do play Kansas on the road for the Border War. That is a rivalry game. There, they do play Florida on their schedule. They got A&M on their schedule, Ole Miss. They do play Texas. They do avoid Alabama on this list as well. They avoid Alabama on this list. They do play Georgia on the road. They do play Oklahoma, a team who I have in the conference champ contenders. They play Ole Miss, A&M. They even play Florida too. So they play some very good contenders there for the SEC. And I guess we'll see what happens this year. So back to my list we go. Mizzou, there's questions. There's definitely questions. They're 25 team in the country. You got to respect that. I'm going to put them at, let's see here. I'm put them, let's see. I'm putting them at average. I'm going to put them at average. I don't think they're going to be competing for a conference championship. I don't see them as a second-tier top team in the SEC. I see them as a middle-of-the-pack team in the SEC. So I'll put them at average. Kentucky, from Lexington, the Bluegrass State. They have a new coach, Will Stein. He was an offensive coordinator at Oregon. Pretty much a new start over here at Kentucky. Nick Anderson from Oklahoma. He's now there at Kentucky. Willie Rodriguez, tight end. Coach is really impressed by him. In media day, he talked about him a lot. Kenny Mitchie, he's going to be the quarterback for Kentucky. He came in from Notre Dame. And then for the defense, Ty Bryant, he's the leader of the defense at DB. And then they bring in a key running back in CJ Baxter from Texas. He was a 5-star out of high school, committed to Texas. However, he's now at Kentucky, transfers in. So Kentucky, a lot of question marks. A lot of question marks there. They're not ranked in the top 25 last year for Kentucky. So last year for Kentucky, they were they went 5-7, 2-6 in the conference, which is bad for bad in the SEC. But they went 5-7, and you would think in another conference that's a good record. But if you're in the SEC with that 2-6 record, that definitely does not seem all that well. That definitely seems not all that well. But so let's look at Kentucky's schedule. They play Alabama right off the bat in week 2. They play A&M. They got to go South Carolina. They play LSU, Oklahoma. They got a tough schedule here in first year over there at Kentucky. Will Stein. I love the rebuild. I really do love the rebuild. I see where Kentucky's going, but in regards to this year, I'm going to have to put them at trash. I'm sorry. In regards to this year, I think Kentucky, they can be a team that can contend, maybe be competitive here and there. But in regards to this year, they're playing a lot of high-end SEC teams. It may not look good. But I guess we'll see what happens, man. I guess we'll see what happens this year for Kentucky. But for now, I'll put them there at trash category. Tennessee. Okay, so for Tennessee, they have a QB battle going on now between two freshmen and transfer Ryan Staub. He was a backup over there at Colorado. They hire Jim Knowles, a very well-known defensive coordinator in Jim Knowles. They bring in star running back Deshaun Bishop. He returns at the running back position. Top 3 tacklers from last season, Edwin Spillman, linebacker, Jeremiah Tellender, linebacker, and Arion Carter. All 3 linebackers all coming back. They're all coming back. Leader 90s, Ty Redmond, DB, he returns. Wide receiver duo, Braylon Staley and Mike Matthews, they both return. So that's pretty good for the receiver room. You got a star running back coming back. Third leading tackler, TJ Metcalf from Michigan at DB. Leading tackler and third in sacks, linebacker Amari Campbell from Penn State. Third leading rusher, Javon Gordon from Tulane. Leader in pass deflection, DB Kayan Lee from Auburn. Second in sacks, Jordan Norman from Tulane, D-line. Third in tackles, pass deflections at INT, DB DJ Burke. So I'm seeing quite 3 DBs from the portal, key ones. Then you bring in Ty Redmond. DB room can be good. They're pretty experienced, but But I guess we'll see with transfers and that will transfers. How is that going to work out in regards to the chemistry? We'll see how that works out. They have a star running back, Deshaun Bishop, coming back. Linebacker position should be good. They have one of the top linebacker rooms in the country with top 3 comeback. It was actually top 4, but however, one of their linebackers, they got hurt. He'll be out for the season for Tennessee. So that's what's going down there for Tennessee. They are the number 20th team in the country. They are number 20 in the country, Tennessee. They look to have a brand new start. They play Texas on their schedule. They do play Auburn. Arkansas, obviously, they play Alabama. They got to go to South Carolina. Remember that time when Tennessee went to South Carolina, they got smoked against South Carolina. So you do not want to underestimate there because Tennessee, they play Alabama. Then boom, right after you play a dangerous South Carolina team, which I'll talk about in a bit. They play A&M, LSU, and then they got a rivalry game against Vanderbilt. So we'll see what happens with Tennessee. I guess we'll see who wins the QB battle. I think it's going to be key, whoever wins that QB battle, how that's going to work out. How will they use their weapons, their offensive weapons? We will see. So off to the list we go. They have a very good coach, over there at Josh Heupel, Tennessee. He used to be at UCF, led that great UCF team, obviously had a great season over there at UCF, now at Tennessee. I'm going to put Tennessee at, let's see here, the number 20th team in the country. I think they can be competitive. I'm putting them almost there. I'm putting them at almost there. They can be competitive. They can be competitive this year, but they kind of control their own destiny because if they lose some of these games, then it could get bad for Tennessee, and they won't be an almost there team. They might be where Mizzou's at in regards to average. So that is Tennessee. Now, Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs, the reigning SEC champions. 72% of the defense returns. That is 5th in the country. They return a lot of defense. And when I think of Georgia, I think of defense. And they're bringing back a lot of defense. That is awesome. Gunnar Stockton's back at QB. One of the top quarterbacks coming back, Gunnar Stockton. Very good QB. KJ Bolden, leader of the defense, at DB. Top Russian duo, Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens returns. That is key right there. They bring Isaiah Kenyon from Georgia Tech, has size and high praise. Wide receiver, Kirby Smart, high praise for Isaiah Kenyon, has size over there at Georgia Tech. Third leading receiver, London Humphreys. He returns. Third leading tackler, Raylan Wilson returns. Leader in sacks, Chris Cole returns. Both linebackers, by the way, leading tackler and leader in sacks. 2 linebackers coming back. Leader in INTs, DB Ellis Robinson IV. He returns. He's a projected All-American. They just released the All-American list, and he's a part of that list for Georgia. Second leading rusher, running back Dante Dowdle from Kentucky. That'll help out the running back room there. Leading tackler in INT, Jamarly Riddle from East Carolina. And those are the 2 key transfers. They only have 9 transfers, Georgia. Only 9 transfers. I think that's very good. That speaks volumes to Georgia, how they trust their room, and they're not going to bring in a lot of transfers in. They only brought 9 transfers. So pretty impressed by Georgia. I think they're going to have more of an organic team this year. They're the reigning champs. Kirby Smart holds them to a high standard. They got some pretty good games here. They got Oklahoma. They play Alabama. They play Florida in a rivalry game. They go to Ole Miss. They play Mizzou. They got to go to South Carolina. And then they have Georgia Tech at home. I think that's key with that, playing Georgia Tech at home for a rivalry game. I think that helps a lot. I think if Georgia can stay focused, they got to go to Ole Miss. They play Mizzou at home. They got to take that South Carolina game seriously, because if they don't and they look ahead for the Georgia Tech game, that can probably change the trajectory of their season in regards to SEC championship. So, but if Georgia, can stay on that path, they're number 3 in the country according to AP poll. I think they are conference champ contenders. Kirby Smart, Gunnar Stockton, KJ Bolden, 70 72% of the defense returns. I'm impressed by that. Put him in conference champ contenders. Auburn, the Auburn Tigers, new team. They have a new team there at Auburn. New coach and Alex Golish, pretty similar to the Oklahoma State rebuild. They brought in some of the guys from USF. They have a new Alex Golish. They bring in Byron Brown from USF. He was a very good quarterback at USF. Now he's at Auburn, the star quarterback. Leading receiver Keyshawn Singleton returns. He was actually the leading receiver at USF. Now at Auburn. Leading rusher Jeremiah Cobb returns. He was at Auburn. That's what it looked like. Jeremiah Cobb. Now he returns. Leading tackler and sacks linebacker Xavier Atkins returns for Auburn. Returns a good amount of talent on defense. Second leading rusher, running back Nakai Davenport from USF. Second leading receiver Jeremiah Koger from USF as well. They brought in 13 players from USF. And then they also brought in leading rusher Bryson Washington from Baylor. So running back room, Jeremiah Cobb, Bryson Washington. Receivers kind of organic with USF. So they have some guys. So it's kind of the same culture over there. USF is just like a transfer, just from team to team. So they have Golish, Byron Brown. They brought in their key guys. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes in the SEC for Auburn. So back to the list we go. Auburn, they're not ranked in the AP poll. They do got a big game against Baylor in week 1. They got to take on the road with Tennessee, on the road with Georgia. Not in back-to-back weeks, though. It's not back-to-back weeks. They have a bye week after the Tennessee game, so that's crucial right there. They got to take on LSU at home, at Ole Miss. And then obviously they got the Iron Bowl with Alabama. And then they got the Iron Bowl with Alabama at the end of the year. So we'll see how Auburn does. They have a pretty favorable schedule. They have a favorable schedule. Am I going to put them conference champ contenders? No. I think Auburn, there's questions. I think there's questions there. I'll put them at average. I think they could be an average team. I love where this is going with Golish. Congrats to him. Byron Brown's there. He's very talented. I think he can lead Auburn to win some games in the SEC. So I think that's the difference between the average and the meh. I'm impressed with Byron Brown. I think he can lead the team this year for Auburn. Vanderbilt. Oof. They lost a lot of production. Big time. Diego Pavia is gone. QB. Eli Stowers. He's gone. But however, QB, they brought in Jared Curtis as a QB prospect. He was a 5-star out of high school. He's now at Vanderbilt. I think that's good for the future if they can invest in him. Blaze Berlowitz is there as senior quarterback. There's a QB battle between them two right now, and we'll see what happens. Who will be the starter come week 1? They have a running back trio: Cedric Alexander, Mecklin Young, and Jemizel Lasseter. They all return at running back. That is key right there, the running back trio. If you can bring back a running back trio, I think that's great. Secondly, receiver Junior Sherrill returns at wide receiver. Top 2 tacklers C.J. Hurd and Brian Longwell return, safety and linebacker. Leader in sacks, edge rusher Miles Capers. He returns. But, however, he will miss some of the season due to injury. He'll miss the beginning of the season due to injury, so they won't have him. Early as they take on Austin Peay, Delaware, and then they gotta watch out with that NC State game, which we'll talk about the ACC when I talk about my ACC teams. Leader in INT Martell Height returns at cornerback for the secondary. Leader in INTs Ricardo Jones, safety from Clemson, comes in, and then second leading receiver Ja'Cory Thomas from Old Dominion comes in. So that's Vanderbilt. I think the offense, they're good. I think they have the weapons on offense. You got a running back trio. You got a receiver in Junior Sherrill and Ja'Cory Thomas. Ja'Cory Thomas comes in as a transfer. Defensively, there's guys there. They got a very good coach in Clark Lee. I think Vanderbilt, they can have a solid season. I think they can have a sustainable season. I don't think it's going to be, conference champ contenders, but I think they can have a solid maybe 6 to 7 wins, maybe 8 wins if they, if they can shock people. I'm gonna put them. I'm gonna put them above average because I think their ceiling. If they want to, is be a surprise and maybe contend for a conference championship. That's their ceiling. That's their ceiling for me. If they can surprise people, but if they can have a sustainable season, I think they can stay at above average. Maybe win 6, 7 games, maybe 8 wins, and go to maybe a bowl game, win that bowl game, and have a very good season for Vanderbilt. Florida, the Gators from the swamp, Gators. They bring back 66%. That is 10th in the country. Total returns, offense, defense. O-line fairly new. Aaron Philo, he's at quarterback for Florida. Transfer from Georgia Tech. Jaden Bogg returns at running back, one of the top running backs in the country. And Jaden Bogg, he can run that ball. And it's key that he's back. They have a new coach in John Summerall from Tulane. He very good coach from Tulane. Led Tulane to some success. Led them to a college football playoff last year. They lost to Ole Miss. But John Summerall, I think he can do a pretty good job over there at Florida. He has the resources now at Florida, so we'll see what happens there with John Summerall. If he can lead this team. Vernell Brown, the third receiver, he returns. That's their leading receiver last year. He returns. 77% of the defense returns. That is first in the country. QB Tramel Jones Jr., he's competing for QB1 as well. With Aaron Philo, and we'll see what happens in the QB1. It's projected Aaron Philo is going to win, but Tramel Jones, he can just sneak up and probably steal that QB1 spot. Leading tackler Miles Graham returns at linebacker. Second leading tackler Bryce Thornton returns at safety. And top 3 in sacks, linebacker Jaden Woods. So, all right, so let's go to the tier list for Florida. Florida, they're not ranked in the top 25. But, however, all right, so let's see their schedule. If this thing can load, there you go. All right, so they got to take on Auburn on the road. That's going to be a tricky game. They got Ole Miss at home. They got to go to Mizzou. They got South Carolina at home. They got to take on Texas on the road. That's going to be a tricky game. They got Georgia, neutral site game on Halloween. That'll be a neutral site game, I believe, in Atlanta maybe. I think the game's in Atlanta. Yes, it is indeed in Atlanta. They got to take on Oklahoma at home, Kentucky on the road, Vandy at home, and then obviously they take on Florida State in a rivalry game at Doak Campbell. So for Florida, they got a tough schedule. They got a very tough schedule. They don't have a championship team. I think their defense can hold them up a bit. Offense, we'll see what happens offensively. Home field advantage is going to be key for Florida. If they can have they have some key games at home. Ole Miss, South Carolina, Oklahoma, and Vandy. Those are their home games for the SEC. If they can win those games and then maybe steal some of these away games, we'll see what happens. But I will put Florida in the average category. I think their team is above average, but because of their schedule, I will put them at average. Alabama, the Crimson Tide of Alabama. Alabama was in the college football playoff last year. They beat Oklahoma. Obviously went on to the Rose Bowl and then proceeded to get smacked by Indiana, the reigning national champs. Alabama, they're currently the number 13 team in the country in the preseason AP poll. They bring back Ryan Coleman-Williams, that wide receiver. There is QB battle going down right now between Keelan Russell and Austin Mack. Austin Mack, a senior. Austin Mack, he was impressive last year for Indiana. I remember when Ty Simpson got out, Austin Mack got in, and he was just impressive, throwing the ball well. He can run the ball. He's a pretty fast quarterback. Austin Mack, he can definitely make some noise for Alabama. And if that's their starter for this year, for 2026, look the heck out for Alabama. Look out. You got Ryan Coleman-Williams, who had a sophomore slump. He had a sophomore slump last year. I think it's for him to. I think it's time for him to bounce back. If he can bounce back and be committed, I think Alabama could be a dangerous team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Leader in INTs, Bray Hubbard returns at DB. Second leading rusher Daniel Hill returns at running back. 3 out of the top 4 rushers return. That includes Daniel Hill, Kevin Riley, and Akadir. Good running back room. Lazier Brooks returns, but he has some shoes to fill. Over there at Alabama. Leader in sacks linebacker Yanze Pierre returns. Second leading tackler Caleb Woodson from Virginia Tech, linebacker. And then third leading receiver, wide receiver Noah Rogers from NC State. So receiver room, we'll see what happens in the receiver room, led by Ryan Coleman Williams. If he can step up to the plate this year, I think Alabama could have a good year. I think they have a good year. Running back wise, they have a good foundation there with 3 of the top 4 rushers returning. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Alabama. They're number 13 in the country. High expectations for them this year, obviously, because they're Alabama. And Kalen DeBoer is Nick Saban's successor. So they got to go on the road to Kentucky for week 2. They got to take on Florida State in a rematch in week 3 in Tuscaloosa. Then they take on South Carolina at home. They take on Georgia at home. They got to go to Tennessee. They got A&M at home. On the road in LSU, taking on Lane Kiffin and that new LSU team. On the road in Vandy, Chattanooga, and then they got Auburn in the Iron Bowl. So a lot of key games for Alabama is at home, and that is a key for Alabama. That is a key right there. I know the Gauntlet's there, but they can be maybe a 3-loss team. According to Paul Feynman, he was on First Take, said that they can go 9-3. That is very possible. If they can actually put their mind to it. If they can get a big win, like for example, if they can get a big win at LSU or a big win against Tennessee on the road, I think that can do a lot for Alabama. They do play Georgia at home. Georgia, they're a really good team. As you can see, they're a conference champ contenders. I will put Alabama, let's see here. I'll put Alabama either almost there or conference champ contenders. I don't know, because I feel like they can be better than Tennessee. But also, do I think they're on their level? I think their potential could be here. So I'll put them there. I think their potential could be conference champ contenders. We'll see what happens for Alabama if they can contend for the SEC championship. They were in the SEC championship last year. They lost to Georgia last year. South Carolina, the Gamecocks. The Gamecocks of South Carolina had a bad season last year. They missed expectations, but however, for South Carolina, this is kind of the final year of belief for South Carolina. So here's what their team's looking like. Top QB, receiver, and defensive end, they all return. QB, Lenore Sellers. He returns. Yep, Lenore Sellers returns. Nick Harbor returns. Dylan Stewart returns. They have a new OC. Depth on the D line. They gain experience from 2025. Thirdly in rusher, running back Matt Fuller returns. Wide receiver Donovan Murph returns. Second leading tackler, linebacker duo Justin Okoronkwo and Fred Johnson, not Fred Warner, guys. Fred Johnson, he returns. So linebacker room looks good. Third leading rusher Christian Clark return from Texas. Second in sacks edge rusher Caleb Herron from Tennessee stays in the SEC. And second leading receiver, wide receiver Nitro Tuggle from Purdue. So this is kind of like that final year belief for South Carolina. It really is, because I had belief in them 2 years ago. I had belief in them this last year. Now I kind of have belief in them this year. We'll see what happens, man. If Shane Beamer can lead that team, they got to go to Tuscaloosa, to Florida. They got to take on Tennessee at home. They got to go to Oklahoma. They have A&M at home. to Arkansas. They take on Georgia at home. South Carolina, they have some big games at home. This is kind of reminiscent to 2024, to 2024 kind of, when South Carolina had these big games at home, when they beat Tennessee at home at 1 year. They beat A&M in South Carolina. That's what kind of catapulted them to this success, had that strong finish 1 year, almost making the college football playoff. This kind of feels like this schedule kind of has a reminiscent feel of that. They got Tennessee at home. They got Texas A&M at home. They got Georgia at home. This kind of has that feel. I think South Carolina, if they want it, they can chase it. I think they can chase it. But let's see here on the list. I think they can be above average. They can be an above average team, or they can be an almost there team. But they do lose a key receiver in the name of Jaden Sellers. That's Lenore Sellers' brother. He's out. He's out this year, so I'm gonna put him at above average. But we'll see if South Carolina, if they can contend this year and maybe get some big upsets this year. Ole Miss, the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss, they return Trinidad Chambliss, Keywan Lacey. They return 62% of the defense returns. That is six in the country. Sunshine Perkins, linebacker, Will Eccles, and Cam Franklin, they all return. So linebacker and 2D line. Second leading tackler, linebacker Luke Farrelly from Cal. Leading receiver, second leading receiver, Jonte Cooks. And Daryl Gill Jr. from Syracuse, both of them from Syracuse at receiver. Leading tackler, linebacker Kean Thomas from Baylor. Second in sacks, edge rusher Jonathan Maldonado from Nevada. Young and talented safety Edwin Joseph from Florida State. I know how he plays. Young guy. He's a young guy. If you can mold him right, he has the talent. If they can mold him right over there at Ole Miss, I think he can be a threat over there on the defensive side, especially the secondary. Leading rusher Joshua Dye from Southern Utah. He rushed for over 1,800 yards last year. Very impressive over there at Southern Utah. Leading rusher, running back Mekhi Frazier from Michigan State. And we'll see what happens. And then Deuce Alexander, he's back for the receiver. So receiver position looks good. They will have the talent. They have the experience because mostly transfers. Linebackers should be good. I feel pretty confident about Ole Miss. This year, Ole Miss, they are the number 9 team in the country in the AP poll. Let me confirm. Yes, they are number 9 in the country in the AP poll. They got a big game against Louisville to start off in a neutral site game. They play LSU in week 3. Electric atmosphere. They got to go to Florida, to Vandy. A lot of tricky road games. They do play Georgia at home. They got a lot of tricky road games. Got to go to Florida, to Vandy, to Texas, to Oklahoma, and then obviously you have the Egg Bowl at the end of the year in a rivalry game. So the talent is there. The roster is there. They have a very good coach in Pete Golden who led them to the semifinals of the college football playoffs. So the coach is not the issue. It's just what Pete Golden said. He said during the media days that he has questions about when adversity is present. How will this team react when adversity is present? If they can react well to adversity in this season, they can be a threat. They can be a threatening team. I'm going to put them at almost there. I don't like the road games they have. They have a lot of tricky road games, about 4 to 5 tricky road games. And I want to see how Ole Miss reacts. I really want to see how they react. So we'll see what happens there with Ole Miss. I'm going to put them at almost there. Texas A&M playing the college football playoff last year. Lost to Miami last year. Disappointing loss to Miami, but here's what A&M got. They got Marcel Reed returning. Linebacker Damian Sanford as a captain for the defense this year. Top tackler going into 2026, Marcus Ratcliffe, safety. They return key offensive players in Reuben Owens II, running back, and wide receiver Mario Craver. They both return. 67% of the offense returns. That is fourth in the SEC. So out of 16 teams, they're fourth. They brought in Isaiah Horton from Alabama. That is a key transfer right there for the wide receiver room. Wide receiver has depth. There's high expectations. They have the number 9 hardest schedule, and then there's questions on the trenches. So for Texas A&M, they got to go to LSU, to Mizzou, to Alabama, to South Carolina. They have a home game against Tennessee, on the road at Oklahoma, and then obviously they end off with Texas in the rivalry game for the state of Texas. So, man, Texas A&M, they got a lot of tricky road games, just like Ole Miss, and it's kind of the same situation there. Good roster, maybe Ole Miss a little bit more talented, but how will Texas A&M react? Mike Elko sent this team to a college football playoff last year. They fell short. A&M was third in the SEC. 7-1, 11-2 last year. We'll see how this goes. For A&M, but I think with the road games that they have, but I like Mike Elko. He makes sure his team is focused, ready to go. I think that A&M team is conference championship contenders. I think so. I'm impressed with Mike Elko. He's a very good coach at keeping them focused. He was very successful. Third in the SEC last year. That is no joke. I know there's going to be a debate between A&M, Ole Miss. I know. But I trust A&M more. I trust A&M a little bit more. There's going to be a debate between Ole Miss and A&M. I might have to change Ole Miss to put conference champions. I might have to do it, but we'll see. We'll see. Arkansas. A lot of rebuild. It's a rebuild over there, Arkansas. New coach. There's a QB battle between KJ Jackson, AJ Hill. Leading rusher at Memphis, Sutton Smith. Ryan Silverfield from Memphis comes in first year as a head coach. They have the hardest schedule in the country. Braylon Russell as running back. Has confidence in the O-line running back room. And Quincy Rhodes at D-line. Quincy Rhodes Jr. I don't know. I really don't believe in Arkansas. I do for 2026. I just don't. They might be competitive here and there, but I'm gonna put them there. But I think Arkansas, if they can play their cards right in regards to the future, I think they can be up there. LSU. LSU. A lot of hype in this offseason. Lane Kiffin now at LSU. A lot of hype and expectations. They're the number 1 portal team in the country. Sam Leavitt is their quarterback from Arizona State, very experienced. Best receiver going into 2026, Trades Green at tight end. He has height and length. I like Trades Green. I like the way he plays at tight end. Height and length, exactly what the film says. Linebacker Whit Weeks comes back, leader of the defense. Whit Weeks, one of the top linebackers in the country, coming back. Top tackler at Ole Miss, TJ Daugherty, linebacker, now at LSU. Picked up former 5-star O-line Jordan Seaton from Colorado. Very good for the O-line. Running back duo Caden Durham and Harlem Berry returns. That is key right there for the running back room. Second leading tackler Devon Keys returns. Second in INTs, cornerback DJ Pickett returns. And they have 41 transfers. And they have a lot of key transfers. So here are the key transfers they brought in. Leader in sacks, defensive end Princewell Umanmielen from Ole Miss. Leader in sacks. Key receiver, wide receiver Winston Watkins Jr. from Ole Miss. Leading rusher, running back Rod Gainey Jr. from Charlotte. Leading tackler, safety Ty Benefield from Boise State. Leading receiver, wide receiver Trey Brown III from Old Dominion. So you already got 2 receivers there, key. Second leading rusher, running back Dylan Jones from Wisconsin. And if you guys know about Wisconsin, they always produce great running backs. Dylan Jones being second leading rusher, I think that's key right there for the running back room. Star leading receiver Jace Brown from Kansas State. He was a very good receiver over there at Kansas State. He's now at LSU. And then last but not least, leading receiver, wide receiver Jackson Harris from Hawaii. So a lot of receivers there, a lot of talented receivers. You got a very good tight end, Trades Green, an experienced quarterback in Sam Leavitt, Defense should do all right. I think there are high expectation for LSU. There's very high expectation, and it should be. So with LSU, they play Ole Miss. Um, on the road. That's gonna be a huge game. They got A&M at home. Let's see here. They got to go to Kentucky, to Auburn, Alabama at home. They got Texas at home, on the road at Tennessee, and on the road at Arkansas. So we'll see what happens with LSU. They do avoid Georgia on this list. That is key right there. They avoid Mizzou. They do play a lot of top talent, though. They do play a lot of top talent. I think LSU should be conference champ contenders. You have a great coach in Lane Kiffin, who led that Ole Miss team close to an SEC championship last year. Made it to the college football playoff. He has the resources at LSU. Talented quarterback, great tight end Trey Green, 4 top receivers on the portal, a great defense. I think if they can all come together and win games, this LSU team can be dangerous. I'm telling you. Mississippi State, don't worry, guys. I got 2 more teams, and then I got to decide whether A&M and Ole Miss, it should be in the same thing. Mississippi State, Kamario Thomas, he's the starting quarterback now for Mississippi State. He's like a dual threat. So he's like a dual threat quarterback for Mississippi State. He's so Kamario Thomas, Kamario Taylor, apologies. Kamario Taylor, he was the backup for Mississippi State last year. He's the expected starter going into 2026. They don't return much production. Anthony Evans III returns at wide receiver. He was a top 2 receiver last year. Running back Fluff Bothwell returns. They have a transfer of Marquise Johnson from Mizzou. And then they bring in third leading tackler Marcus Williams from Rice, safety. So not a lot of good transfers for Mississippi State. Mississippi State, they went on a run last year. They went on a pretty good run one year. They upset Arizona State. Could have been that team that could have made a huge surprise in the SEC, but then they just ran into that one team and just their season came crashing down. I don't know if that's going to happen again this year. Kamario Taylor, he's very talented. He's a very talented quarterback. He's a very talented quarterback. They do have some tricky games here. Non-conference at Minnesota. I'm pretty high on Minnesota. At South Carolina. They play a lot of great teams here. I don't feel confident about Mississippi State, so I'm going to put them on the same category as Kentucky and Arkansas. I'll put them there. Last but not least, we have Texas. Texas Longhorns. They're one of the favorites to win the national championship. 73% of the offense returns. That is 4th in the country. Arch Manning returns. Projected Heisman candidate. Ryan Wingo returns as a top receiver. Cam Coleman from Auburn. Hollywood Smothers from NC State and Raleek Brown from Arizona State. A running back duo. A newly formed wide receiver duo. Offense is loaded. Colin Simmons, edge rusher, top defensive player for Texas. He's a heck of an edge rusher for Texas. They have a new DC in Will Muschamp. He is a very talented DC, high-name DC. They have the 3rd hardest schedule in the FBS according to ESPN Analytics. But if you look at other analytics, people say SEC, ESPN, a lot of bias there. I did check Fox, and Texas is top 10 in the hardest schedule. So just wanted to clarify that. They're number 12 they're number 5, number 5 in the rankings in the AP poll, the preseason AP poll. They got a tough game against Ohio State in week 2 against the number 1 team in the country. They got to go to Tennessee. Rivalry game against Oklahoma. They got Ole Miss at home, on the road at Mizzou, on the road at LSU, and then they got to go to College Station A&M, Texas A&M. So a lot of tough games on there. We'll see what happens with Texas. They have a talented roster, and we'll see what happens, man. Are they a contender? I think so. I think they have the roster. I question how they will end the year. because it's always that fight to the finish, and usually you gotta finish well in order to make the SEC championship, or unless you just dominate the regular season. But we'll see how Texas does. They got to take on a strong A&M team who I have as conference champ contenders. They play them at the end of the year, and that may decide a conference championship. Like that one year, Texas took on Texas A&M. The winner was going to go to Atlanta. Texas won that game to go to Atlanta, take on Georgia. They ended up losing, but they still made it to Atlanta. That possibly could be the answer here. But they're definitely contenders. They're definitely contenders for sure. I'll put them up there. I'll put them up there for sure. I'll put them up there because they are contenders, because they can beat A&M, and that same scenario from 2024 can happen when those two maybe go on a crash course. Both on a crash course come end of the year for rivalry week. And now let me see A&M and Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss, they have the talent, they have the roster. Number 6 in the country. I do like the way they end their season, so I'm gonna put Ole Miss there. All right, yeah. So I'm gonna put Ole Miss conference champ contenders. I like the way the season ends. Key for me is how the season will end for these teams. Like if I see, okay, that's a favorable ending, they can probably win out at the end of the year, I favor them for conference championship. So, all right, guys, that is the tier list. That is the tier list right there. Conference champ contenders: Oklahoma, Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU, Texas, Ole Miss. Almost there, Tennessee. Above average, Vandy, South Carolina. Average, Mizzou, Auburn, Florida. Meh, nobody's meh. And then you got trash with Kentucky, Arkansas, and Mississippi State. So, all right, guys, that is the SEC version of my tier list. Before you go, make sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon on YouTube so you get notified of when we go live. Also, follow our Instagram at Be Ready Sports Podcast. We post sports news. College football season, we will be packed with sports news. So, this is my tier list, guys, for the SEC. And I'll see you guys for part 2 of the mini series when I do the Big Ten Conference. All right. See you guys then.